So for a few decades, I brewed beer and fermented without a dedicated fermentation chamber. I've been using a chest freezer with a controller for the last couple years. It's really been a game changer for me, in some ways that I really didn't expect. Well, stick around and find out more about fermentation temperature control. Well, let's get brewing. Well, hey there, this is Brent from Cascades Homebrew. I'm making this video because I feel like I owe you one. So I want to thank everybody that subscribed, liked, and shared positive comments on my videos. Also those that passed along constructive criticism. I'm really just a brewer, creating a couple of videos for YouTube. I don't really have any plans to make a living out of this or really even make any money. But the steady growth, the positive feedback, it's gotten me motivation to keep going and put out videos like this. So as of right now, I've got 3 videos with over 1,000 views. I'm pretty sure 1,000 views doesn't count as viral, but hey, it feels good to me. So one of those videos is on brewing an American IPA. Another one of those videos is on brewing a hazy pale ale. I get it. Hoppy beers are popular. Those kind of videos might get some hits. But my most popular video is on brewing a Belgian triple. Oddly, I have other videos on brewing Belgian beers that aren't nearly as popular. The thing is, I've been looking into the importance of good thumbnails and good titles. So I gave that video a little bit of a clickbaity title. Does fermentation temperature control matter? While that video was about an experimental batch where I fermented it with 2 different temperatures, it's really just one data point. It was really just one batch using one yeast and one fermentation process. So I wanted to create a follow-up to that video. But this video really is not about answering the question, does fermentation temperature control matter? Because the answer to that question is yes, fermentation temperature control matters. So what I wanted to cover in this video is 1, a little bit of my history with fermentation temperature control. 2, some of the issues with no real control, just using the ambient temperature. Looking at some fermentation temperature control schedules that'll help you make more consistent and better beers. And then some equipment options for fermentation control, including my current setup. And while the focus of this video is on brewing standard ale yeast, there's also some information that would be useful if you're brewing stuff like Kveiks or cold fermented lagers. As I mentioned, I fermented from a long time without any real dedicated fermentation temperature control. So often I had a cool area where I could set my beer during fermentation, such as a basement or just a cool lower level. Often I used strategies like a swamp cooler or a tub full of ice to control temperatures. I often had to brew with the seasons and keep an eye on the weekly forecast for the weather. Yeah, I couldn't really think about doing cold fermented lagers, but I felt like I was doing a pretty good job with, standard American ale yeast. So let's look at you. Is fermentation temperature control something you need to address? I see people asking this all the time on forums. So I've probably said it before, but the number one problem that you need to solve is your number one problem. So there's some baseline level things that are required to make good beer, say like cleaning and sanitation. There are some aspects that are maybe a little less critical. Let's say water chemistry. So if your beers are constantly infected, it's probably not your sulfate to chloride ratio that you need to work on. In the other case, maybe your water source is terrible for brewing beer, and that really is the number one spot you need to work on. So as far as fermentation temperature control, there's a lot of brewers that'll tell you that's up there in the top 10 things you need to address. But there's a big difference between, say, somebody that lives in an area where temperatures are constantly hot, or maybe somebody that lives in an upper floor apartment where their temperatures are controlled but consistently warmer than a standard ale temperature would recommend, versus somebody like me, say that has a cool basement where you can put your beer, or a cool lower level. So maybe your situation is like me. Maybe you've got a kind of a cool area where you can ferment and you don't think it's that important. I didn't think it was that important. Well, I was wrong. I now believe fermentation temperature control is a solid upgrade for any brewer. Even if all you do is brew ales with US-05 and you have a cool area to ferment. I'm going to show you why. So why do I think fermentation temperature control is so important? Well, let me bring up a couple graphs to show you why. First, let's look at what a typical ambient fermentation temperature may look like, just using a yeast like, we'll say US-05 or SO4. And then we'll look at some additional perks that temperature control adds. So let's look at what a typical fermentation schedule for an ale at ambient temperature might look like. Don't get too concerned about the specific times, temperatures, but the general concept here. This is based on having, say, a cool room that's about, 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 20 degrees Celsius. So the first area is about chilling to pitching temperatures. I'm probably not the only one that struggles to get beers down to the ideal pitching temperatures. This is especially true during late summer when the water entering my immersion chiller is about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. Even with using an ice bath, That last 10 degrees Fahrenheit seems to take forever. So the first benefit for me has been using my chamber to ensure I can cool my wort down to my target pitching temperature. So maybe I really wanted to get the beer down to say 66 degrees Fahrenheit or 19 degrees Celsius, but I wasn't able to quite get there. So I went ahead and pitched at a little warmer temperatures. Then over the first few days of active fermentation, the temperature of the wort starts to rise. The amount will vary a bit based on variables such as batch size, type of fermenter, fermentation vigor. It might just be 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius, but it could be even more. So that's the first major issue with an ambient fermentation plan. So at warm temps, yeast is more likely to generate esters and fusel alcohols. Now as we move on to day 4, fermentation is slowing and less heat is being generated. The temperature of the beer will start to settle down to the ambient temperature. Well, that seems like a good thing. It's actually a second issue. Most yeast actually works better at warm temperatures, but we as brewers like to keep it cooler to control the flavors produced. At this time, the conditions in the beer are getting more hospitable to the yeast. The yeast have long ago consumed the available oxygen. The pH of the wort has dropped. The food source for the yeast, the sugars, are starting to run out. The yeast are using up all their cell reserves. The CO2 and alcohol produced are both byproducts produced by yeast, and they're toxic, especially the alcohol. And at the same time, the temperature around them is dropping. For many yeast, this is a sign to prepare for dormancy and start to flocculate out. But we as brewers want the yeast to complete fermentation and clean up fermentation byproducts. Then as we move on there, the beer settles to ambient temperatures, often with a little swing in temps from day to day or from night to day. This might be a bigger issue if you have drastic temperature changes, say during the day when you're at work versus when you're home in the evening, or if you set your temperature very low at nighttime. So we looked at some of the issues with ambient temperature control, really no temperature control, just setting the beer out and letting the temperature of the air control the fermentation temperature. Let's take a look at some simple steps to kind of control the fermentation temperature control. This may be a solution like a swamp cooler or a tub of ice. This also may be a solution like a large chamber where you're able to control the ambient temperature in there, but the temperature is not tied to specific fermenters. So in this solution, which I'm calling a restricted temperature fermentation, one, we're able to get the initial temperature down a little bit lower, and then we're able to limit the initial temperature spikes during active fermentation. This is going to limit the amount of excess esters and fusel alcohols that might be produced. We also have less of a temperature drop, so the yeast are less likely to stall out mid-fermentation. And then we're better able to smooth out temperature swings after fermentation. If this is a solution based on ambient temperature, say the swamp cooler solution, we might have limited control over the actual temperature range. It might be warmer than ideal. It might be hard to push temperatures down where you really want them. When I first got a fermentation chamber, I thought this was my general goal. Maybe that I would want to keep the temperature a little more flat with the controller tied to a specific temperature, or maybe I could push the temperatures a little bit lower as needed. But now let's look at the actual fermentation control schedule that I've been following. So when I got my fermentation chamber, I was kind of looking for resources online. I found a great section in the How to Brew book. It's kind of my default. If I have a question, usually John Palmer's got a decent answer for me. So let's look at the recommendation from page 94 of the 4th edition of How to Brew. So around day 4 or 5, or if you're 2 to 5 points from your final gravity, and you know what your final gravity is and you're taking measurements, I don't really do that. It's recommended to raise the ferment temperature 5 degrees Fahrenheit to 10 degrees Fahrenheit, or 2 to 6 degrees Celsius, and leave it there for 4 to 8 days. So I've adopted a very similar strategy myself. I find I get fast, clean, and consistent fermentations following this schedule. So first we looked at ambient temperature control, where we saw a spike during active fermentation, and then the temperature fell, and then we saw a kind of consistent with maybe some gyrations. And then we looked at a restricted fermentation. We're able to reduce the amount of heat generated during active fermentation, and then we're able to maintain a fairly consistent temperature as fermentation completes. But then adopting the recommendations from John Palmer, we get this. If I'm not able to get my beer down to the ideal temperature, I'm able to use my fermentation to bring it down to exactly where I want before pitching the yeast. Often for ales, around 64 to 66 degrees Fahrenheit, or 18 to 19 degrees Celsius works really well for me. As I see signs of fermentation slowing, so that's usually around day 3 or day 4, I ramp up the temperature. For me, since I often use clear fermenters, this is when the krausen starts to fall. If you don't have a clear fermenter, you may have to just drudge it off airlock activity. So at this point, I usually raise the temperature up to about 6 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 2 degrees Celsius, and hold it there until packaging. Often over a few days, but sometimes I do this just all at once. Cool and steady temperatures at the beginning lock in the yeast flavors that we want in the beer, and then the extra heat helps to keep the yeast happy and working until the sugars all run out and all the byproducts are cleaned up. So if you want to take that first step with what I call the restricted fermentation temperature control, then you're able to reduce the spikes and have a more consistent fermentation temperature. So one easy solution is a swamp cooler and or with tubs of ice. Often the swamp cooler uses evaporation to cool. So you're covering your fermenter with, say, a towel or a t-shirt and maybe using a fan to help evaporate the water. And then with a tub of water, if you need to bring down temperatures, you can add in, say, either ice packs, maybe frozen bottles of ice. A solution like this should help you lower the temperature a couple degrees below your ambient temperature. It's not going to be the best if your house is really warm, if you want to do lagers, and you want to do something like cold crash a beer. So what are some other sort of either inexpensive and or compact solution? One is a heat-only solution. So a lot of the talk about fermentation temperature control talks about cooling, right? And a cooling solution, say like a freezer, is much more expensive than a heat-only solution. For example, I got a heat pad and controller off Amazon, and total was $25. So there's lots of solutions that involve a simple heater with maybe a little bit of insulation like a blanket. Another solution that I've saw is called Sun Fermentation Chamber. So it's basically this insulated box that you would build that uses a fan, ice bottles with a controller to control temperatures. I have a friend that has one of those. I would say these days, based on the availability of cheap temperature controllers and also likely ability to find a used fridge or freezer, I would probably go that route, but this may be an option for you. Another solution I saw where people build a box around, say, a small dorm fridge. So I think that might be a good solution if you've got an old dorm fridge around that you want to use. Another solution I'll mention is the Brew Jacket Pro. I haven't used this. This definitely isn't in the cheap solution because it's about $300 US, but definitely is pretty compact. If you only got one fermenter, this might be a solution for you. Their paperwork says it controls 35 degrees Fahrenheit above or below ambient temperature, which is a pretty wide range. So I was able to find this little 5 cubic foot chest freezer on Craigslist for only $25 US. So I added that, and then I picked up this Inkbird controller for, again, I think it was probably $25, $30. Inkbird controller allows you to control a cooling source, in this case would be the chest freezer, and also a heater. So I picked up this little space heater from Walmart. Again, I think that was less than $10. I'm not sure if it's the ideal solution. The problem with this particular heater is if it gets warm, it shuts off. It kind of thinks it's overheating, like it threw a blanket on it. So I can't use it to raise the temperature too much, and I couldn't use it to ferment, say, a Kvike at high temperatures. I'm also a little skeptical about how safe it is in a damp environment like a chest freezer. Something else is important to use a chest freezer. Something like these straps to be able to lift the fermenter in and out. Otherwise, it's pretty difficult. So there's a couple different options for attaching the probe to the fermenter. Some people like a thermal well, so the probe is down into the beer. I found that maybe it's a little bit of overkill. You could just tape it to the outside. So usually what I do is I just take something like this with a little bit of a paper towel for some insulation, and then tuck that. So that'll keep the probe a little bit protected from just cold or hot air inside the chamber, but it'll also be a good job of registering the temperature of the beer. So I think when I initially got this chamber, I was just using these small 3-gallon monster fermenters. And a couple times I think I split a 5-gallon batch across 2 different fermenters. When I picked up this 7-gallon Monster, which I really like, I hit a problem. With this particular chest freezer, I'm able to fit my 2 small Monsters in there, no problem. So this one is fairly deep, but the well in there is not very wide. So if I try to use my 7-gallon Monster, it's too wide, it won't fit down in the well, and then it's too tall for the lid to close. So the solution for that was just to build this simple collar. I had plans to maybe attach it or have better installation on it, but it seemed like it was working okay just like that. That's how I used it for a little while. So while I was really happy with his chest freezer and how it was working for me, it ended up dying on me after about a year of use. I'd gotten so used to having fermentation temperature control, I rushed out and I got his replacement. I was lucky to find this one on sale at Best Buy. I think it was like $125 plus tax. This is his 5 cubic foot as well. It's shaped a little bit different, so So in this one, I can fit my fermenter. The well is deep enough, I can fit my fermenter all the way down in there, so I don't have to worry about a collar. I've got another beer fermenting in there right now. So I was able to use the same heater and Inkbird temperature controller to control this one. So now I use the non-functional chest freezer, just as sort of an insulated box that I can use to heat up. So I picked up this combination, this heat mat, and also this VivoSun temperature controller. It's a heat-only temperature controller. And I've been really happy with how this works. So I would recommend, if you're looking for a heat source for a chamber, something like this seedling heat mat, I think I would recommend. Should be fairly safe using it in a damp area. Another option I've seen are some infrared heat lamps, I think that are made for like reptiles. So that's my current setup. I've got this small 5 cubic foot freezer that I can cool or heat above ambient. And then I've got another 5 cubic foot freezer. In this case, I can just heat it up above ambient. I find having the combination of the two works out really well for temperature controller. I can start off a beer in the cold chamber where I can keep the fermentation temperatures low during active fermentation. And then once fermentation is over, if I need to move it out, I can move it into the other chamber. I can also use the other chamber for fermenting warm, say like a Kvike beer or maybe a Belgian that I want to keep warm. So I've got the ability to cold crash, the ability to control fermentation temperature. And then there's the pure convenience. I don't know how much time I spent checking on the fermenter, opening doors, closing doors, opening vents, closing vents, moving the fermenter to a warmer location, moving the fermenter to a cooler location, messing with the thermostat, setting the thermostat on hold even when I was going to be away for a week. Now, I just plug in a temperature on the controller and let the chamber do its thing. So I guess a discussion on fermentation temperature control solutions wouldn't be complete without talking about some of the high-end solutions like the Glycol systems. So a Glycol system consists of a refrigerated glycol reserve chamber and then also temperature controlled pumps and cooling coils in the fermenter. So the system will pump the refrigerated glycol through the fermenter. The biggest downside of these systems is just the expense. It's really hard to get started for under about $1,000. There are kind of DIY solutions, but they look kind of involved. The upside is they look great if you're trying to control multiple fermentation chambers at the same time. So let's go ahead and recap for a second. Does fermentation temperature control matter? Yes. I may argue that the fermentation phase of brewing is more important than the brew day phase. So what if you can't justify either the money or the room for a more complex fermentation temperature control schedule? So one thing I would suggest is to measure and monitor your current fermentation temperatures. Try to understand what spikes or variations you have in the temperature of your beers, and also see if you can correlate that back to quality of the beers. Is there a certain temperature or certain schedule that you actually like your beers better at? And then I would say try to take steps to avoid the spikes and the dips and the inconsistencies in the fermentation. So you can do that with some of the solutions we looked at earlier, say like the swamp cooler. The other suggestion I may have is to warm your fermenter up after fermentation is complete. This can be done either by maybe just moving your fermenter to a warm part of the house or using an inexpensive heating pad type solution. The solution of mine that I looked at with the chest freezer and the controller, they could all be had brand new for $200. If you're able to find a used fridge or freezer for cheap or maybe even free, it's going to drive the price way down, maybe as low as $50. But whatever you do, hopefully you take some of the information out there to try to build some better beers. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you check this playlist for other home brewing how-tos. And also, check out this recommended video to learn more about building great beers. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notifications of my future content. Cheers!